everyone. So part 5 is all about selection. And in this, we're going to look at the selection tools and methods. What we're talking about here is what are the ways that companies figure out who they want to hire. That's the topic we're looking at here. So what are the methods and tools for companies to use to select the right person they want to hire? And the first step that they have to do is collect information about the people who want to hire, their applicants. So the common way of doing this is to look at their CV, their resume. And by the way, here in the UAE, people use the term CV more often than they use the term resume. Where I come from in America, we use the term resume more often, and CV is usually only used for people who are in academics. So that's why I made this point here, that you should know what a proper CV or resume looks like for the region of the world that you are applying to. So for example, in this part of the world, it is very common for people to put a picture of themselves on the CV, okay? Where I come from in America, if you put your picture on your CV resume, people would look at you, people would look at that very odd, because we don't do that where I come from. Or at least they didn't when I lived there. I've been gone for 12 years, who knows. Another way that they do things is to collect information from the application form. So this is where you fill out, the application form is where you fill out information about yourself, okay? Now, I've been at this, I've been teaching human resources and helping students make CVs and resumes for 20 years, okay? And one of the common questions that I get is it acceptable to lie? And my answer, quite simply, is no. In fact, it's not just no, it is a huge no. Here's why. I can give you an example of a person who lied about his past experience and it cost him his job. So there's a guy by the name of Scott Thompson who was the CEO of Yahoo, and back in 2000, he became the CEO of Yahoo back in 2012. He was a very smart guy, very well respected by, when he was hired to be CEO, people thought it was a great thing. But he claimed in his biography on the official website that he had double majored in both accounting and computer science. It turns out that was not true. It turns out that he'd only majored in accounting, okay? Now keep in mind, this guy's in his late 30s. He'd done, actually I'm not sure how old he was when this happened, but he'd been out of college for a long time. He didn't tell the truth about something not all that big a deal earlier in life. And he had a record of accomplishments after that. And yet, upon learning that he was dishonest about this, the board at Yahoo basically sent him packing and he went on his way. So I used this as the moral of the story that do not lie on your resume or application form. Do not lie. So you've had everybody, you've looked at all the CVs, resumes, you've looked at the application forms. Then the next step is screening. In today's world, hundreds of people will apply for a single job. It's very common because in the old world where you had to physically walk up and take your CV to somebody, well then obviously you can't apply for 10 jobs in a day. In today's world, a college graduate applying for a professional position can easily apply for 20 jobs, 30 jobs a day. It can be done. And so it is common that companies will get way more people applying than they possibly want to look at. And so that brings us to screening. So how does a company narrow down the applicant pool? And the answer again is screening. They have to ask the question, does the person that we're going to consider, do they meet the minimum qualifications set in the job specifications? So, for example, to be an instructor here at UAU, you have to have a master's degree and you have to have teaching experience. So one screen when we're hiring people to be instructors is we look, do they actually have a master's degree? And believe it or not, when I was part of an interview process last year, there were a lot of people who applied who didn't even have a master's degree. So it's easy to then just remove those people. They don't meet the minimum qualifications. Whatever is set in the job specifications, which you know what job specifications are because that was explained in an earlier video. What remains is what's referred to as a qualified pool of applicants. And so what that means, what the term qualified pool of applicants means in simple English is that these are people that are maybe worth considering for the job. Then companies can do online testing. So you can offer some type of online test to learn more about the candidate and hopefully take some candidates out of the mix, take some candidates so that you're not going to consider them. And I know companies in America, at least, that give a personality test. Similar to the Myers-Briggs test that we did here, or Big 5 personality test, they will offer a personality test to see if the person is right for the job. Some companies will offer a knowledge or skill test. And the example that I know of in this region where that is very common is when our students apply for the Big 4 accounting firms, they will give them a knowledge test. And a couple of years ago, not a couple of years ago, 10 years ago, one of my students had an interview with one of the Big 4 accounting companies, and he was given a knowledge test. And this is a student who was graduating at the top of his class in accounting. And long story short, one time I had a chance to meet the woman who became a supervisor. So he got the job and whatever. And I had a chance to meet her. And I asked, you know, Aldo Rockman was at the top of his class. Why would you need to give him a knowledge test? And she started laughing. And she said, look, believe it or not, there are people who graduate with a 4.0 in accounting or 3.9 in accounting who don't know anything about accounting. And so we have to give a knowledge test to see, does the applicant we're interviewing, do they actually know anything about accounting? Now, that shocked me, but I understand what she's saying. Now, the good news I have for all of you who are majoring in accounting here at UAU, every student I know of that I know has taken this test has all been approved. So in other words, they've not eliminated anybody in accounting who's taken this test. Maybe there are still too many candidates to consider. So even after you do tests, even after you try to narrow it down, maybe there are still too many candidates to consider. And so then it comes to asking the question, is there other criteria that we have to look at? And I can give an example here from the searches that we've done here at UAU that I've been part of. So when I was on a search committee where we were searching for a new instructor to come here and teach, we had job specifications, of course, and we eliminated all the people that didn't have the degree that was needed, didn't have the teaching experience that was needed. We eliminated all those things, but we still had way too many candidates to consider. So I then looked at what is the criteria that I know is successful for teachers here. And one of the things that I know makes someone more successful teaching here is, number one, how long have they been teaching? So is this somebody with more than 5 years of teaching experience, 10 years of teaching? Somebody who's been teaching longer probably is going to be able to do a better job. Also, does the person have any teaching experience here in the Arab world? Because speaking as somebody who was teaching in America before I came here, it is very different teaching in the UAE than it is teaching in America. So when I applied that criteria, I was then able to eliminate some more people, okay? Now keep in mind, by the criteria I just said, I would not have been considered because when I first came here, I had no teaching experience in the Arab world. So I created criteria that would have eliminated me. But hopefully, my point is that in what I've said above, if there was something extraordinary about the person, so in my case, I was able to say I had fantastic teaching evaluations and I developed curriculum and I had other things that were good, I would hope that even I would be considered even though I didn't meet the criteria. I think I may have confused things there, so I'm not trying to. Just the point is, you want to narrow down. This is the whole point of this video. The goal, the bottom line of everything we're doing here is if you have 200, 300 people apply for a job, the goal we have in HR is to narrow that down to a reasonable number of people. You can't interview 200 people. You can interview 3 to 5 people. So everything we've done up until now has been trying to narrow it down to maybe 3 or 5 people to interview. And that's where we'll end this video. And next we'll pick up with other screening methods, so forth. Hope this made sense.